An 8-year-old girl texted, "He has a gun on Dad," to the wrong number. She accidentally reached the president of a motorcycle club. 2 words appeared on her screen: "On my way." What happened next would teach a young cartel enforcer that some old men still remember how to bite. Before we dive in, where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get into the story. It started on a humid Miami night when a little girl made a mistake that would save her life. The closet smelled like her mother's old winter coats and something else. Fear, maybe. Arya pressed her back against the wall, phone screen glowing blue against her tear-stained face. Through the crack in the door, she could see her father's shadow on the living room wall, hands raised like he was trying to calm a wild animal. "I told you, Vaughn, I need more time." "Time's up, old man." The voice was young, cocky, the kind that hadn't learned respect yet. Arya's fingers trembled as she typed the number her dad had written on the fridge, the emergency contact. But in her panic, she got 1 digit wrong. "He has a gun on Dad. Please help. 2247, Cypress Lane. Send." She held her breath, waiting for sirens that wouldn't come. 12 miles away, in a garage that smelled of motor oil and old leather, Humphrey sat on a stool that had supported his weight for 30 years. The chrome on his Harley gleamed under the single bulb hanging from the rafters. He'd been polishing the same spot for 20 minutes now, not really seeing it. His knuckles were scarred topography, each ridge a story. Each callus a lesson taught with his fists: Vietnam, bar fights, club wars. All of it felt like yesterday and a lifetime ago. On the workbench beside him, a photograph in a cracked frame, a little girl with pigtails, gap-toothed smile, sitting on this very bike. Melissa. Gone 15 years now. Cancer didn't care if you wore a patch or knew how to throw a punch. The phone buzzed. Humphrey set down the rag slowly, like a man who'd learned not to rush toward hope. Unknown number. He almost didn't open it. "He has a gun on Dad. Please help. 2247, Cypress Lane." His chest tightened. The words blurred, then sharpened. He read it again, then a third time. Not a mistake. A message. Maybe from Melissa herself, reaching back through whatever came after. Maybe from God, if he was still taking calls from men like Humphrey. Either way, this wasn't random. This was a second chance. He stood, joints popping, and walked to the pegboard where his rings hung, brass knuckles disguised as jewelry. One by one, he slid them on. The skull ring, the Iron Saint's sigil, the one with his daughter's initials engraved inside. Only then did he pick up the phone. His thick fingers hovered over the screen. "On my way. Send." He reached for his keys, and somewhere across town, in a dark closet, a little girl's phone lit up with 2 words that meant someone was coming. Someone who knew how to bite. The Harley roared to life like a sleeping bear, waking up angry. Humphrey didn't peel out. He rolled to the clubhouse door with purpose, the kind of controlled fury that came from 50 years of knowing when to explode and when to simmer. The engine's rumble was a war drum in the humid Miami night. Fitzgerald was already outside, cigarette dangling from his lip, gray beard braided at the chin. He'd been VP of the Iron Saints since Carter was president. One look at Humphrey's face and he flicked the smoke into the gravel. "We riding?" "We're riding." English emerged from the shadows, 6'5", 300 pounds of Seminole heritage and bad attitude. He said nothing, just swung his leg over his bike and fired it up. Some men needed explanations. English just needed a direction. 3 engines. 1 heartbeat. They pulled onto Route 1 in perfect formation. Humphrey at point. Fitzgerald on his right flank. English guarding the left. Not a race. A procession. The kind Roman legions used when they came to collect debts. The Miami heat pressed down even at night, thick as motor oil. Neon signs from strip malls and pawn shops bled color across the asphalt, pink, green, the sickly yellow of bail bond offices. The city had changed. Used to be you knew your neighbors. Now everyone hid behind ring cameras and HOA bylaws. But some things didn't change. Some men still answered calls for help. They passed a homeless vet holding a cardboard sign at a red light. Humphrey caught his eye. That 1,000-yard stare that brothers recognized in each other. The light turned green. They rolled forward, 3 bikes moving like sharks through shallow water. Fitzgerald pulled up beside him at the next light, shouted over the engine's address, 2247 Cypress. Copy. The streetlights turned the chrome on their bikes into liquid silver. Every head on the sidewalk turned. People moved back instinctively, some ancient part of their brain recognizing apex predators when they saw them. 2 miles out, Humphrey raised his left fist. The signal. They tightened formation, engines sinking into a single thunder that rattled windows and set off car alarms. This wasn't stealth. This was a declaration. Cypress Lane appeared on the right, a subdivision of identical houses with perfect lawns and 2-car garages. American dreams wrapped in vinyl siding. Humphrey didn't slow down, didn't park on the street like a guest. He jumped the curb and drove straight across 2247's front lawn, grass tearing under his tires. Fitzgerald and English followed, 3 bikes now parked in formation on the Kentucky bluegrass, headlights blazing toward the front door. The engines cut simultaneously. In the sudden silence, they could hear it. A man's voice inside, high-pitched with fear, and another voice, younger, full of venom. Then a sound that made Humphrey's jaw tighten. A child crying. He swung off his bike and started walking toward the door, rings catching the porch light. Behind him, Fitzgerald chambered around in his .45. Inside the house, something shattered. Humphrey didn't knock. The front door wasn't locked. These idiots never thought anyone would be crazy enough to walk in. His boots crossed the threshold with the confidence of a man who'd kicked in doors from Saigon to South Beach. Inside, the scene froze like a photograph. Vaughn, mid-20s, gold chains, designer sneakers, had a chrome 9mm pointed at a man kneeling by the coffee table. The father. Weston, probably. His hands were up, eyes red, the kind of broken that came from owing the wrong people money. "Think you can just ignore me? Huh? You think—" Vaughn's voice died when he saw the 3 bikers standing in his peripheral vision. Not running, not yelling, just standing there, filling the doorway like tombstones. The silence was louder than any threat. Vaughn spun, gun swinging wild toward Humphrey. His hand was shaking. The gun was an accessory, not a tool. He probably bought it at a gun show, thought it made him dangerous. "Who the Son," Humphrey's voice was gravel and whiskey. "That toy is loud. Put it down before you hurt yourself." Vaughn's eyes darted between the 3 men. English cracked his knuckles, a sound like pool balls breaking. Fitzgerald leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, the .45 visible in his waistband but not drawn. Didn't need to be. "You know who I work for?" Vaughn's voice climbed an octave. "You know what cartel." "Don't care." Humphrey took a step forward. "You're in a house with a child. That means you leave. Now." The gun was still pointed at Humphrey's chest. Any rational man would have shown fear. Humphrey showed nothing. Just those cold Vietnam eyes that had seen boys younger than Vaughn bleed out in rice paddies. Death wasn't scary when you'd shaken its hand 100 times. Vaughn's bravado cracked. He could smell it on these men, the kind of violence that didn't need a gun, the kind that was older, meaner, more patient. "This ain't over." "Yeah, it is." Something in Humphrey's tone made Vaughn back toward the kitchen. He kept the gun up, trying to save face, but his feet were already moving. He hit the back door, stumbled into the yard, and then they heard his car engine roar to life from the alley. Gone. Humphrey turned to Weston, still kneeling. "Where's the girl?" Weston pointed with a trembling finger toward the hallway. "Closet. Second door." Humphrey walked past family photos on the wall. Birthday parties, Disney World, a dead wife's smile. He stopped at the closet, knelt down with a grunt, and opened the door slowly. A little girl stared up at him, phone clutched to her chest like a Bible. Blonde hair, pink pajamas, eyes that had seen too much tonight. He offered a grease-stained hand, scarred knuckles catching the hallway light. "Let's get some ice cream, kid." Behind them, in the driveway, tires screeched. Vaughn's car was coming back, and this time he'd brought friends. The Iron Saints clubhouse sat at the end of a gravel road that Google Maps had given up trying to find. Humphrey's Harley led the convoy. Weston and Arya squeezed into Fitzgerald's pickup behind them, English bringing up the rear. They'd left through the back fence while Vaughn's crew circled the block like sharks who'd lost the scent. Not running. Regrouping. The clubhouse appeared through the pines, not the meth den the news channels liked to imagine. This was old Florida, before the developers came. A sprawling wooden structure with a wraparound porch, American flag hanging limp in the humid air, and a hand-carved sign above the door. "We don't dial 911. Smoke drifted from a barrel smoker out back. Someone was cooking. Arya climbed out of the truck on shaky legs, still clutching her phone. The parking lot held a dozen bikes, each one worth more than her dad's car, each one maintained with religious devotion. Chrome gleamed under the security lights. The front door opened before they reached it. "Humphrey?" A woman's voice, warm as bourbon. "What'd you bring home now?" Marley stood in the doorway wearing a Lynyrd Skynyrd t-shirt and jeans that had seen better decades. Gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She'd been with the club longer than most of the members. Old lady to 3 different presidents, outlived them all. Her eyes landed on Arya and softened instantly. "Oh, honey." She crouched down to eye level, didn't crowd her. "You look like you could use some hot chocolate and a bath." "That sound good?" Arya nodded, mute. "Come on, then. Leave the scary men outside." Inside, the clubhouse smelled like wood smoke and slow-cooked brisket, the kind that had been going since dawn. Wood paneling covered the walls, photos of rides and fallen brothers, a Vietnam-era flag in a shadow box, a pool table with worn felt. It looked like her grandpa's hunting lodge, back when he was alive. Not scary. Safe. Marley led her down a hallway, talking gentle nonsense about the kitten they'd found last week, how it liked to sleep in the saddlebags. Behind them, Humphrey steered Weston toward the main room where the leather couches were older than most members' kids. "Sit." Weston sat. Humphrey lowered himself into the facing chair with the groan of a man whose knees remembered every fight. He didn't speak right away, just studied this broken man who'd put his daughter in a closet with a text message for a lifeline. "You owe money," Humphrey finally said. Not a question. "Gambling. Started small, then—" Weston's voice cracked. "My wife died 2 years ago. Medical bills. I thought I could—" "How much?" $35,000. Humphrey nodded slowly. Seen worse. Seen men owe their souls for less. "We'll fix it. Club's got connections. Legitimate ones. We'll negotiate your debt down. Set up payment plans." He leaned forward, rings catching the lamplight. "But you listen to me, Weston. You never, never put that little girl in danger again. You got a problem, you call someone. Hell, you call me now. But you don't let animals with guns stand over you while your daughter hides in a closet. You understand?" Weston nodded, tears tracking down his face. Down the hall, Arya's voice drifted out, lighter now, asking about the kitten's name. "English," Marley called. "Bring Sergeant Whiskers." The giant appeared moments later, 300 pounds of muscle and ink, cradling a tiny orange tabby like it was made of glass. He knelt beside Arya, who was now wrapped in a clean towel, hair damp. "This here's Sergeant Whiskers," English rumbled in his bass voice. "Found him behind the dumpster at Ace Hardware. Think he was a Marine in his past life." Arya giggled, the first light they'd seen in her eyes all night. The kitten mewed, reached a paw toward her face. Outside, gravel crunched. Every head in the clubhouse turned toward the window. A black SUV with tinted windows was idling at the property line, engine running, just sitting there, watching. The SUV had left around 3 in the morning, but nobody slept after that. Dawn came up pink and gold over the pines, mockingbirds starting their racket. Humphrey was already in the garage bay, wrench in hand, working on Fitzgerald's carburetor. The Harley's engine was spread across a clean tarp like a dissected patient. His hands knew this dance. Turn, tighten, check. Mechanical meditation, the only thing that ever shut his brain up. Behind him, the screen door creaked. He didn't turn around. Heard the small footsteps, the hesitation. Arya had slept in Marley's guest room, the one that still had his daughter's old stuffed animals on the shelf. Nobody talked about it. "Morning," he said to the carburetor. "Morning." Her voice was small but steadier than last night. She came closer, watching his hands work. She'd changed into clothes Marley must have scrounged, a Tampa Bay Bucks t-shirt that hung to her knees, rolled-up jeans. "What are you fixing?" "Fitzgerald's bike. She's been running lean, coughing like a 2-pack-a-day habit." Arya studied the scattered parts. Then, like she'd done it 1,000 times, she picked up the 3/8 wrench he needed next and held it out. Humphrey paused, looked at the wrench, then at her face. Melissa used to do the same thing, knew tools before she knew algebra. He took it, their fingers brushing. "Good eye, kid." They worked in silence for a few minutes, him tightening, her watching, learning. The morning sun slanted through the garage door, dust motes floating like gold flakes. "Are you a bad man?" The question hung in the air like exhaust fumes. Humphrey set down the wrench, wiped his hands on a rag that had been red once, maybe decades ago. He turned to face her, this little girl with 2 old eyes. "I'm a bad man to bad people, sweetheart." He met her gaze, didn't sugarcoat it. "To you, I'm just Humphrey." She considered this, chewing her lower lip. "Like Batman?" Despite everything, he almost smiled. Yeah, like Batman, but with worse knees. That got a giggle. Small, but real. The moment shattered when the clubhouse door slammed open. Humphrey! It was Riggs, the youngest prospect, barely 22, still trying to earn his patch. Kid's face was pale, phone trembling in his hand. What? I was doing the morning drive-by on Weston's house like you said. He swallowed hard. Someone threw a brick through the front window. It's got a message. Humphrey's jaw tightened. What's it say? Tick-tock. Riggs held up his phone, showed the photo. Shattered glass, a brick wrapped in paper, spray-painted words on the living room wall behind it. We know where the girl sleeps. The garage went silent, except for the mockingbirds, oblivious, singing about territory and mates. Humphrey looked down at Arya, who'd gone still as a rabbit sensing a hawk. Go inside with Marley, now. She ran. Fitzgerald appeared in the doorway, .45 already holstered at his hip. How you want to play this? Humphrey stood, joints popping, reaching for the cut, his leather vest hanging on a hook. The Iron Saints patch on the back was faded from sun and rain and years. He shrugged it on like armor. They want to make this personal? We'll show them what personal looks like. He turned to Riggs. Call everyone. Full chapel meeting. 1 hour. Everyone? Everyone. As Riggs scrambled for his phone, Humphrey walked to his bike, ran a hand over the chrome, thinking about the text message, the girl in the closet, the second chance he'd been given. In his pocket, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He opened it. A photo. Arya's school. Jefferson Elementary. The playground visible in the background. Below it, a message. Pretty place. Lots of windows. Humphrey's hands clenched into fists, rings biting into his palms. Vaughn had just made the last mistake of his life. Vaughn sat in the VIP section of Club Nexus, bottle service and Instagram models, bass rattling the ice in his overpriced vodka. His phone was propped against the bottle, recording. Always recording. Life wasn't real unless it had views. See this? He gestured to his gold Rolex, to the women flanking him like props. This is what power looks like. Not some old-ass bikers on museum-piece motorcycles. He leaned into the camera, eyes glassy. They think they scared me? Nah, they embarrassed me. Around him, his crew nodded. Young men in designer hoodies and face tattoos. The kind who thought violence was content and respect was a cryptocurrency. They didn't know the old codes. Didn't care about honor, loyalty, the things men used to kill over. They cared about clout. Tomorrow, Vaughn announced, loud enough for the whole section to hear, we teach these geriatrics what generation we living in now. His lieutenant Carlos leaned in. You want me to call the Zetas? Get serious muscle? Nah. Vaughn's smile was cocaine sharp. Just need enough boys to make a point. These old men bleed same as everyone else. Fitzgerald left the clubhouse at noon, solo, heading to pick up parts from the auto supply on Route 1. Mistake. He didn't see the black Challenger following him until it was too late. They boxed him in at a red light. One car in front, one behind, a van pulling up on his right. No escape. His hand went to the .45, but the doors were already opening, 6 men spilling out like ants from a kicked hill. They dragged him off the bike before he could draw. The beating was efficient, professional. Fists, boots, a tire iron across his ribs. They didn't shoot him. That would have been mercy, or maybe murder. This was a message, written in bruises and broken teeth. Tell your president, One of them hissed in Fitzgerald's ear. "We're coming for the little girl, and all the leather vests in Florida won't stop us." They left him there, bleeding on the hot asphalt, bike tipped over, oil leaking like blood. A soccer mom called 911. EMTs arrived 12 minutes later. By then, Fitzgerald had crawled to his phone and made a different call. Humphrey took the call in the clubhouse chapel, the sacred room where patches were earned and brothers were buried. He listened without speaking. Fitzgerald's voice was thick, slurred from a split lip and maybe a concussion. "They jumped me at Palmetto and 5th. 6 of them. Said they're coming for the girl." "Hospital?" "Hell no. Riggs is picking me up. Be there in 20. Fitz, I'm fine." A wet cough. "But Humphrey? These kids don't fight like we used to. They don't want territory or respect. They just want to hurt people and film it." Humphrey's grip tightened on the phone. "I'm handling it." "I know you will. That's what scares me." The line went dead. English stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "How bad?" "Bad enough." Humphrey rose from the table, old wood creaking under him. "Get everyone armed. Check the perimeter. Nobody in or out without clearance." "And the girl?" Humphrey looked toward the main room where Arya was teaching Sergeant Whiskers to bat at a string, her laughter carrying through the walls, innocent, unaware that men were planning her death. "She doesn't leave my sight." He grabbed his cut from the chair. "And Vaughn? He just bought himself a grave." "When?" "Tonight." English nodded once and disappeared. Humphrey stood alone in the chapel, surrounded by photos of dead brothers, their smiles frozen in time. Good men, hard men, men who'd known the code. This new generation understood nothing, but they were about to learn. Outside, gravel crunched, Riggs' truck pulling in. Humphrey walked out to meet it, every step deliberate. Fitzgerald climbed out, face a mess of purple and red, left eye swollen shut. He limped, but didn't lean on anyone. Pride or stubbornness. Same thing with old bikers. Their eyes met across the parking lot. No words needed. Inside the clubhouse, Arya's laughter stopped. She'd seen Fitzgerald's face through the window, and in that moment something shifted in the air. The last peaceful breath before the storm. Humphrey's phone buzzed again. Another photo. His bike, parked right here, right now. The message, "Smile for the camera, old man. We're already here." "Chapel. Now." Humphrey's voice cut through the clubhouse like a blade through flesh. Within seconds, every patched member was moving. Boots on hardwood, chairs scraping, the organized chaos of men who'd drilled for this moment their entire lives. Arya looked up from the couch, Sergeant Whiskers curled in her lap. Her eyes found Humphrey's face, and something in it made her go pale. "Marley," Humphrey said quietly. "Take them to the safe room." Marley didn't argue. She scooped up Arya, motioned for Weston to follow. The chapel had a reinforced back room. Original purpose was storing guns and cash, but tonight it would hold something more valuable. "What's happening?" Arya's voice was small. "Just a precaution, honey." Marley's voice stayed steady even as her hands shook. "You're going to hang out with me for a bit. Maybe teach Sergeant Whiskers some tricks." The door closed behind them. Heavy deadbolt sliding home. In the main room, 17 bikers assembled. The youngest was Riggs at 22. The oldest was Mad Dog Murphy, 73, hands gnarled with arthritis, but could still strip a rifle blindfolded. They formed a semicircle. Every face turned toward Humphrey. He stood before them, his cut worn and faded, the Iron Saints patch a badge of everything they'd survived. Vietnam, gang wars, raids, brothers buried, but always, always they'd stood. Listen up. His voice was gravel and gunpowder. Those punks out there think we're finished. Think because we got gray beards and bad knees that we're easy prey. Fitzgerald stood beside him, face a bruised testament to their enemy's arrogance. They beat one of our own on a public road like a dog. They threatened a little girl. Humphrey's jaw tightened. Tonight isn't about colors or patches. It's about showing these punks that there are still wolves in these woods. English cracked his knuckles. That sounded like breaking kindling. They're coming here. Probably a dozen, maybe more. They got got numbers. Humphrey pulled his .45 from his waistband, checked the magazine with practiced ease. But we got something they don't. We know how to fight like men. How you want to set up? Mad Dog's voice was pure Kentucky gravel. Defensive positions, floodlights on the driveway, blind them coming in. English, you take the west window with the hunting rifle. Fitzgerald, despite that face, you're on the east side. Riggs, you're on the roof with the spotlight. He pointed to the property map tacked on the wall, hand-drawn, every sight line marked. They'll come hard and fast, think they can overwhelm us. Let them bunch up at the gate. Bottleneck them. Make them come through the kill zone. His finger traced the narrow driveway. Then we show them what happens when you threaten our family. Nobody flinched at the word. Family wasn't blood here. It was choice. What about the girl? Someone asked. Safe rooms reinforced. 4-inch steel door, ventilation, supplies for 3 days. Humphrey's eyes swept the room. But they're not getting close enough to find out. Outside, the Florida sun was bleeding orange into purple, sinking behind the pines. The temperature was dropping, still humid but bearable. Combat weather. Crickets started their evening symphony. Someone checked their pistol, the metallic slide a punctuation mark in the quiet. Lock and load, Humphrey ordered. But nobody fires unless fired upon. Let's not give them martyrs or evidence. The men dispersed like water, each to their position. Practiced, efficient. Decades of riding together translated into wordless coordination. Humphrey walked to the window, looked out at the gravel drive leading to the main road. A half-mile of open ground, nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. Perfect. Marley emerged from the chapel, face tight. They're secured. Arya's scared but trying to be brave. She'll be fine. He said it like a prayer. Will we? Before he could answer, English's voice boomed from the west window. Contact. 3 vehicles. Maybe 4. Headlights off, coming slow. Everyone froze. Through the twilight, the sound grew. Engines, multiple, purposely quiet. Not the roar of Harleys, but the purr of expensive cars driven by men who'd never earned their violence. Humphrey moved to the center of the room, to the spot where the light was dimmest, where he could see everything. Hold positions, he said softly. Let them commit. The engines grew louder. Mad Dog whispered, How many you think? Through the window, headlights suddenly blazed on, 4 vehicles in a line, high beams turning the driveway into a stage. Then 6 more behind them, 10 cars, 50 men, easy. Fitzgerald's good eye went wide. Christ, Humphrey! Hold! The lead car, a black Escalade with chrome rims, stopped at the property line. Door opened. Vaughn stepped out, illuminated like a movie star, phone in hand, already recording. Behind him, his army assembled, silhouettes with guns, eager for blood. Vaughn's voice carried across the night, amplified by youth and cocaine confidence. "Old man, send out the girl, and we'll make this quick." In the safe room, Arya heard it through the walls, started crying. Humphrey's finger moved to the trigger guard of his .45, and somewhere in the darkness between the clubhouse and the cars, a red laser dot appeared on Vaughn's chest. English, ready, waiting for the word. "Not yet," Humphrey whispered. The red dot stayed centered on Vaughn's chest. English's breathing was steady, controlled. 50 years between the trigger and death. Vaughn strutted closer, phone still recording, his army fanning out behind him like he was directing a music video. "Last chance, old man. We know she's in there." "Now," Humphrey said. Riggs hit the floodlights. 10,000 watts of halogen exploded across the property. Commercial-grade work lights stolen from a construction site 3 years ago. The kind that turned night into noon. Vaughn's crew stumbled, hands flying to their faces, blinded. Their formation collapsed into chaos. Amateur hour. "Second position," Humphrey barked. Mad Dog triggered the driveway spikes. Homemade caltrop scattered across the gravel. The lead Escalade lurched forward and both front tires exploded with sounds like gunshots. Now they were committed, bottlenecked, exactly where Humphrey wanted them. "Fire over their heads!" 3 warning shots cracked into the night sky. English's rifle, Fitzgerald's .45, Mad Dog's shotgun. The sound was massive, authoritative, the sound of men who knew their weapons. Half of Vaughn's crew hit the dirt. The other half froze, suddenly realizing that Instagram followers couldn't stop bullets. "Next one's center mass," Humphrey's voice boomed across the property. "You got 3 seconds to get back in your cars." But Vaughn wasn't done. Couldn't be. His ego was a living thing, hungry and stupid. "Rush them!" he screamed at his crew. "They're old. They can't—" The first man who charged the porch learned different. English dropped from his position, 300 pounds of controlled violence, 1 punch. The attacker went down like someone had cut his strings, unconscious before he hit the gravel. Then it wasn't a siege anymore. It was a brawl. They came in waves. Young men with expensive guns they didn't know how to use in close quarters versus old men who'd been fighting since before these kids were born. Fitzgerald took a tire iron to the shoulder, but returned with an elbow that shattered someone's orbital bone. Mad Dog moved like bourbon-soaked lightning, his arthritis forgotten in the adrenaline. Riggs proved why he'd been a Golden Gloves champion before he found the club. The yard became a chaotic canvas of violence, grunts, impacts, the wet sound of flesh meeting flesh. And in the center of it all, Vaughn and Humphrey finally met. The young man came in wild, all haymakers and rage, phone dropped and forgotten in the dirt. Humphrey slipped the first punch, ate the second on his shoulder, then grabbed Vaughn's wrist with a grip 50 years in the making, the kind of strength that came from wrenches and handlebars and holding brothers together when they were dying. He twisted. Vaughn screamed. They went down together in the dirt. But Humphrey was on top in seconds, knee on chest, hand around throat. Not squeezing. Not yet. Just there. A promise. "Listen to me, son." Humphrey's voice was quiet now, deadly. "You ever come near this family again, and there won't be enough of you left to fill a matchbox." Vaughn's eyes were wide, all the cocaine bravado drained out through his pores. "Understand?" A nod. Frantic. Sirens split the night air. Someone had called the cops. About damn time. Humphrey stood, grabbed Vaughn by his designer collar, and zip-tied his hands behind his back with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Around them, the fight was over. Vaughn's crew was either unconscious, running, or surrendering. The bikers stood bloodied but upright, a wall of leather and scars. Red and blue lights painted the pines. English wiped blood from his knuckles. "Cops are going to have questions." "Let them ask." Humphrey looked toward the clubhouse. "We were defending our home." The safe room door opened. Arya appeared, Marley's hand on her shoulder. She looked at Humphrey, this giant who'd answered a wrong number text, who'd stood against an army for her. "Is it over?" she asked. Behind her, in the safe room's darkness, something beeped. A phone. Weston's phone. The screen glowed with a new message. Phase 2 begins at dawn. The Phase 2 threat evaporated with the sunrise, just another empty boast from Vaughn's crew, scattered like roaches when the lights came on. Detective Martinez arrived with the dawn, a good cop in a department full of compromised ones. She surveyed the zip-tied bodies, the property damage, the security footage Riggs had wisely been recording. "Self-defense," she said simply, closing her notepad. "Clear as day." Vaughn went into the cruiser screaming about lawyers and rights, words that meant nothing when you'd threatened a child on camera. The DA would have a field day, 20 years minimum, if he was lucky. The clubhouse settled into quiet as the last patrol car pulled away. 2 weeks later, Weston's car was packed. A job in North Carolina, fresh start, away from the debts and the ghosts. Arya sat on the clubhouse steps, Sergeant Whiskers purring in her lap, not wanting to leave. Humphrey knelt down, joints popping, and held out his hand. In his palm, a small silver bell worn smooth by decades of road miles. The Road Guardian bell from his Harley, the one that had kept him safe through every ride since Vietnam. "This keeps the goblins away," he said quietly. "Wherever you go, kid, you'll have a piece of the Iron Saints watching over you." Arya's eyes filled. She threw her arms around his neck, this giant who'd answered a wrong number prayer. "Thank you," she whispered. "No, sweetheart. Thank you." Minutes later, their car pulled away, gravel crunching under tires. Arya's hand was pressed against the rear window, waving. Humphrey waved back, this old warrior surrounded by his brothers, all of them standing there with soft expressions that would have surprised anyone who didn't know them. The girl who'd been hiding in a dark closet was now driving toward light. And Humphrey. He went back inside, the clubhouse feeling a little less empty than before. He'd learned something in those 2 weeks. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. If you believe that real heroes don't wear capes, they wear leather and answer calls for help at 2 a.m., like and share this story. Subscribe now for more stories about brotherhood and loyalty. Also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.